Okay, so have you ever been standing in the checkout line? Like, finally bags are packed, you're almost out the door.
Freedom.
Yes. And then
Oh,
it H's
ugh.
the epic meltdown.
The dreaded public meltdown.
From your tiny human who is now the star of the show, and everyone's staring at you.
The judging eyes everywhere.
Well, today, we are diving into those oh-so-public parenting moments.
But buckle up.
And trust me, you are not alone.
Not even a little bit. We've all been there.
So we're going beyond just surviving the meltdown today.
We are going to thrive.
Yes, we're aiming for thriving afterwards because that is possible.
Absolutely.
And we've got all this great source material here with expert strategies to help you understand what is actually going on in your child's brain in those moments.
That's a lot.
And then how to respond in a way that actually helps them learn and grow from it.
Because it is a learning opportunity.
It is a learning opportunity, not just a reason to hide in the pantry with a bag of chips.
Though I wouldn't judge you if you did.
One thing that really stood out to me from all this research was this emphasis on staying calm ourselves as parents.
Yeah.
Which seems kind of obvious, but is it really that important if you're already dealing with a hurricane of emotion?
It's huge EE. Honestly, it's probably the most important thing because think of it this way. You're the emotional mirror for your child.
Ooh, that's good.
So if you are mirroring back panic and frustration when they're already spiraling, it makes things 10 times worse.
Right, because if you're freaking out, they're going to think they need to freak out more.
Exactly. Our source material had a great analogy. They compared it to adding fuel to a fire.
Oof, yeah.
Not what we want.
Okay, so in the heat of the moment, though, how do you actually DA?
I'm asking for a friend who may or may not have lost her cool in the cookie aisle a time or two.
Oh, we've all been there. No judgment here. The source material actually gives us some pretty concrete tips for this. First off, deep breaths.
Okay.
Deep breaths are your superpower in those moments.
Sounds so cliche.
It does, but it's so true.
Yeah.
Just consciously slowing down your breathing, it really does calm your nervous system.
You're like hitting the pause button before things escalate.
Exactly. You're hitting the reset button for yourself, which can sometimes help your child as well.
Yeah.
And then another trick that I really liked from the material is this idea of mentally reframing the situation.
Oh, I like that.
So instead of thinking, oh my gosh, my kid is ruining my entire shopping trip, which we've all been there.
Then shift your thinking to, this is a chance for them to learn about handling big feelings, or this is an opportunity for me to model calm.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Because it is.
It's not about giving in, it's about seeing the bigger picture.
Exactly.
Okay, so that leads us to another big point from all this research, and it's this idea of getting out of the meltdown zone.
Yes, literally.
Literally. Because fluorescent lights and a chorus of beeping shopping carts are probably not helping the situation.
Not at all. Our source material talks about sensory overload and how that can be a major trigger for meltdowns, especially in kids who are sensitive to it. Bright lights, loud noises, crowds, it can all be a recipe for disaster.
That's too much.
It is. So removing them from that environment, if you can sometimes be enough to just hit that reset button.
Easier said than done when you're stuck in line for the bathroom, though. True. But you can still make small adjustments, even if you can't, run out of the store screaming.
Which we don't recommend.
Not recommended. So the source suggests crouching down to their level, making eye contact, creating a little calm space in the chaos. Maybe you duck behind a clothing rack for a minute, or you can step outside just for a change of scenery.
Sometimes all you need is 60 seconds of fresh air.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about staying calm ourselves, changing the environment if we can. What about addressing the elephant in the room, aka the big feelings?
Yes, those big feelings.
Because those are at the root of it all.
They are. And this is where that term emotional literacy comes in handy, which our source mentioned. We need to teach kids that all their feelings are okay, even the loud, messy ones.
Even the really ugly ones.
Especially those, because all feelings are valid.
Does that mean we let them do whatever they want, though?
No, that's the big misconception. This is about validating, not indulging.
Okay. Big difference.
Huge difference. So you might say something like, I see you're really angry right now, which acknowledges the feeling without giving in to whatever the demand is.
Which is important because you're still in control.
You're the parent.
Exactly. Okay, so we've addressed the emotional side of things, but our source material also talks about some practical tools we can use, like distractions.
Oh, yes, distractions.
Oh.
Classic for a reason.
They work.
They do. Our source specifically mentioned packing a meltdown kit.
Okay, I love this. Tell me more.
So this doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's not about like, going out and buying a whole bunch of new stuff, but just having a few go-to items that, can redirect your kids' attention. So yeah, it's not always just about toys, although those can work. Our source talks about things like bubbles for little kids, those little pop-it fidget toys that are everywhere these days, even just a book of silly songs.
It's like you're giving their brains something else to focus on.
Exactly. A sensory shift.
Okay, so speaking of being prepared, because those meltdown kits,
Uh,
that's key. Our source also touched on the idea of setting the stage before you even head out into the world.
yes. This goes back to that idea of emotional literacy and preparation.
Being proactive.
Exactly. So before you leave the house, talk to your child about where you're going and what kind of behavior you expect.
So instead of don't have a meltdown, which let's be honest, never works.
Never works.
It's more like what
You might say something like, remember at the grocery store we use our inside voices, we walk next to mommy, we keep our hands to ourselves, make it positive and specific.
and to be honest, some days that might mean a shorter shopping list and a drive-through pharmacy run.
Yes, survival mode is a valid parenting strategy.
100%. So we've given our listeners a lot to think about today, but here's my final question for you and for everyone listening.
Hit me.
Could these meltdown strategies actually help prevent meltdowns in the long run?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And what's fascinating, based on all this research, is that by understanding those triggers, responding thoughtfully, and giving our kids the tools to navigate these big emotions, we're not just managing a single incident in the cereal aisle.
There's a bigger picture,
There is. We are building essential life skills.
which is pretty amazing when you think about it.
It is. And that's something worth reflecting on.
Absolutely. All right, everyone, until next time.